The song was What You Gonna Do. The year was 1977. I'm Dave Jenkins from Pablo, Cruz, and these are the sounds of the time.
Like many baby boomers who grew up to be rock musicians, Dave Jenkins found his calling on a certain night in 1964.
I had already been playing in the school bands, brass instruments and marching band, but then I heard the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Everything changed from that point. I can do that? Okay. That's all. The decision has been made.
2 years later, Jenkins dropped out of college and headed west.
It was the summer of love, 66, 67. There was so much going on in the Haight-Ashbury and San Francisco Bay Area, and it was all around music and psychedelics and just people getting together. And, I was just there, and it was an amazing time to experience all these bands and music.
It wasn't long before Jenkins met fellow musicians Corey Larios and Steve Price.
They had a band back then called Together. And the thing about them was they had an equipment truck and roadies. They must really have it together. So I joined playing bass with those guys.
The partnership eventually evolved into a new band with a new name.
It was just one of those odd names that came up during this particular LSD experience. And then when it came time to name the band, Corey mentioned, hey, what about Pablo Cruz? We could call it that.
The band's unique brand of blue-eyed soul, with tunes written by Jenkins and Larios, got them signed to A&M Records.
And I was walking down Bridgeway next to the San Francisco Bay in Sausalito with a good friend of mine, and I heard this song called What Does It Take? I said, oh my God, that's us. Where's that coming from? And these guys were fishing, and they had a radio, a blaster, and it was coming out of a San Francisco radio station. And I just stood there going, holy cow, we're on the radio.
In 1977, they were on the radio a lot, thanks to one particular tune.
There was a song that Corey had years before this called Butterfly, and it was, I don't know why, but it wasn't particularly lyrically anything great. But he just had this piano rhythm. So I started playing with that piano rhythm and came up with this guitar rhythm on top of it. And then I had been in this off and on relationship with this gal, incredibly wonderful, beautiful gal. And I was in that process of what am I gonna do, Do I wanna leave or do I wanna stay? I couldn't commit. So the question came up, what are you gonna do when she says goodbye, Boing, that's it. At least I got a good song out of this.
What you gonna do when she says goodbye? What you gonna do when she is gone?
The single reached number 6 and propelled the band into the limelight, though not without some interesting turns.
This radio station brought us in to do a show. And I remember getting off the plane, and it was one of those things where you walk down out of the plane down to the tarmac, and the radio people were there. Well, it was a black radio station. They didn't do their homework, and they thought that song was some black guys singing it. And it was like, oh, wow, you guys do that song? But we went and did the gig anyway.
The late 70s proved to be a golden age for arena rockers like Pablo Cruz.
You always saw friends at the airport, different bands that were going, you'd bump into them at O'Hare or SFO, or, you'd see people. And that was kind of a cool thing, Everybody was out working, and it was a great time to be in music. I mean, touring with the Doobies back then, of course, they had their own plane. We used to fly with them in the Doobie line. We actually had a plane later, 2 different planes that we flew in.
But success was taking its toll.
Corey likes to say, yeah, the party got bigger than the band.
In 1981, Price left the group, and a few years later, Pablo Cruz essentially dissolved. In 2004, the original members reunited, and today, Pablo Cruz is making up for lost time, once again performing and recording.
we could have done without 20 years. I would like to have gotten to it earlier.